"Don't come for Christmas," my mother said. But she didn't see what came next. My advice? "Don't come home for Christmas," my mother said, her tone as breezy as ever. "We'll just pretend you're busy. It'll be easier that way." I stood motionless in my apartment kitchen in downtown Denver, still holding a small tin of peppermint bark I'd spent the night before carefully layering with wax paper. The ribbons were already tied, tags signed, gifts stacked by the door. My flight was booked, my suitcase was zipped. But her words hit like frost on glass, silent, cold, and splintering. She didn't sound upset. She didn't even sound conflicted. Just detached. Like she was offering a weather update or reminding me to grab milk. Like crossing me off the invite list was no more difficult than untangling a string of lights. I swallowed. "Did I do something wrong?" "Oh no, honey," she said too quickly, too brightly. "It's not you. It's just, you know how things are. With Evan bringing his girlfriend and Aunt Myra getting anxious and you being, well, you know." I didn't know. Not really. Me being what? A pause. Then, softly, "It's just complicated." That phrase. Her go-to excuse for every exclusion, every avoidance. A velvet rope of dismissal. "Okay," I said quietly. No protest, no pleading. Placed the tin down on the counter and turned to look out the window. Snow had just started falling, soft flakes gathering on rooftops, covering the sidewalks in silence. The world looked untouched, almost kind. That's when I realized this wasn't heartbreak, it was revelation. Not being invited wasn't the tragedy. The tragedy was how long I'd spent trying to fit into a version of family that only welcomed pieces of me. My name is Naomi Chan. I'm 34 years old and I'm a software analyst in Denver, Colorado. I've spent years being the reliable one, the one who sent thank you notes, who never rocked the boat, who showed up. But that morning, with a forgotten tin of candy and a freshly broken illusion, something shifted. If they could let me go so easily, maybe they never truly helped me to begin with. Growing up, I was always the miracle. That's what my mother used to say when we visited neighbors or chatted with her book club friends in Boulder. Our little blessing, she'd beam, one arm around my shoulders like a trophy on display. I was adopted at birth, brought into their home after years of failed IVF. A second chance, a gift they never expected. And for a while I believed it. Ben Mason was born, 2 years younger, their biological child, the one with my dad's dimples and my mom's musical laugh, the one whose childhood was preserved in framed collages and scrapbooks, while mine was tucked into envelopes at the back of a filing cabinet. After Mason, I wasn't the miracle. I was just Naomi, dependable, quiet Naomi. The babysitter, the helper, the extra. I never made waves. I wore hand-me-downs gratefully. I clapped the loudest at Mason's band recitals and wrote thank you notes for every gift, even when it was clearly a re-gift. I paid my way through school in Denver, 2 part-time jobs, no loans, no calls home for help. Every holiday, I still returned with gingerbread cookies and carefully wrapped presents, hoping for a flicker of recognition, of belonging. I even sent money. After my dad passed, I started quietly transferring part of my annual bonus to help my mom cover the property taxes. I never told her, never asked for thanks. It was just what family does, right? Except somehow, I never felt like I belonged. The only person who ever made me feel truly seen was my grandmother, June Tran, my mom's mother. No pretense, no performance. She noticed how I always brought books to family cookouts. She wrote letters, even though I lived just across town. She called me her still water. Steady, thoughtful, deep. When I graduated, she took off her vintage jade bracelet, pressed it into my hand, and said, "You were never a second choice. You were the right one all along." In her house, I was loved. In my mother's, everything had to look perfect. Mason's girlfriend needed to match the aesthetic. Uncle Rick's new partner had to be dazzled. I was the misfit in the glossy family portrait. Single, adopted, reserved. So when Mom said not to come this year, I didn't argue. Because deep down, I'd always known. I was only family when it fit the picture. And that kind of love wasn't really love at all. After I hung up that day, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, smash an ornament, or call anyone to vent. I just stood there, in the quiet glow of my apartment's Christmas lights, letting the silence drape over me like fresh snow. It wasn't loneliness I felt. It was something far more profound. It was recognition. I'd spent 34 years trying to be small enough to fit, grateful enough to stay, quiet enough not to rattle anyone's sense of comfort. And now, finally, they had spoken aloud what they'd only implied for decades. I was never truly one of them. Not really. Not fully. And they didn't want to keep pretending. So I stopped pretending too. I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account. The scheduled transfer from Mom's tax fund, canceled. The grocery delivery I'd set up to arrive on Christmas morning, deleted. The custom engraved notebook for Mason, his initials pressed into vegan leather, returned. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I was done sending love into a vacuum, done hoping it might echo back, done wiring bits of myself into a space that only took, never gave. No dramatic social media post, no cryptic quotes, no warning shots fired into the family group chat. I just stopped. Quietly, cleanly, deliberately. For the first time in my adult life, I let the silence stay. And I didn't fill it. I didn't decorate a tree. I didn't bake snickerdoodles or press play on Love Actually. Instead, I cleaned the kitchen drawers. I color-coded my bookshelf. I wandered the snow-lined paths of Sloan's Lake Park and watched children build lopsided snowmen. And to my own surprise, I didn't feel left out. I felt free. Yes, the disinvitation hurt, but choosing not to return, that was power. That was what they never counted on. They expected shame, or pleading, or guilt. But what they gave me, intentionally or not, was space. And in that space, I found peace. Not the kind found at a full table or under a glittering tree, but the kind found on your own couch, wrapped in a hand-knit blanket, peppermint tea warming your hands. The kind that whispers, you don't have to audition anymore. Because the role they gave me, the afterthought, I just let it go. If you've ever been the quiet one in the background, waiting to be seen, stick with me. Naomi's story isn't over. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens when she finally stops waiting and starts choosing herself. The version of me who never made waves? She didn't live here anymore. It was the morning of December 29th, and I was curled up on my sofa in flannel socks, sipping spiced tea as snowflakes traced lazy spirals outside the window. The holidays had passed. For once, I wasn't unraveling after some family fallout. I wasn't bracing for the next emotional blow. I was still, steady. Then my phone buzzed, an unknown number with a Denver area code. I hesitated, then answered. Miss Chan, a calm professional voice asked. Yes, this is Naomi. My name is Thomas Callahan. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Miss June Tran, your grandmother. I sat up instantly, heart tightening. I hope this isn't a bad time, he said. I attempted to contact your mother first, but couldn't reach her. I'd like to schedule a meeting with you. There's a matter in Mrs. Tran's will that concerns you directly. I blinked. I thought everything was handled weeks ago. There was an addendum, he explained. It was sealed per her wishes to be opened after the holidays. It names you as the primary beneficiary. My breath caught. This afternoon? I asked. Yes, he said. 2 o'clock, if that works for you. By 1:58, I was sitting in a quiet office in Cherry Creek. Mahogany walls, a ticking grandfather clock. Mr. Callahan welcomed me, then slid a folder across his desk. These are certified documents. Your grandmother made several amendments shortly before her passing. I opened the folder, expecting maybe a piece of jewelry, a letter. But one sentence froze me. All assets, including the residence at 4619 West Hemlock Drive and all financial holdings, totaling $820,000, 0 cents, are to be inherited solely by Naomi Chan, my granddaughter, not by blood, but by love and loyalty. My hand flew to my mouth. She left everything to me? I whispered. She did, Mr. Callahan confirmed. And there's more. He handed me a letter, cream stationery, familiar handwriting. If Naomi is ever made to feel excluded, diminished, or unseen by this family, let this inheritance be my response. She was always mine, and I want the world to know it. This gift cannot be contested. Let no one benefit from her pain. I read it again and again. Tears spilled as my grandmother's words broke a silence no one else had dared to fill. She had seen me, all along. The patterns I'd spent my whole life excusing, she had seen them. And in the end, she gave me not just her house, but something far more permanent. She gave me proof that I had been loved, quietly, fully, unconditionally. By the time I got home from Mr. Callahan's office, 5 missed calls blinked on my screen. All from my mother. 3 unread texts from Mason followed close behind. They all carried the same tone, stunned, performatively concerned. Mom, why didn't you say something? We could have talked this through. You knew Grandma was sick. Mason, there has to be a mistake. Grandma would never cut us out unless someone got in her head. I didn't respond. The next morning, a knock echoed through my apartment. I didn't need to check. I already knew. When I opened the door, there stood my mother, wrapped in a snowy white wool coat, pearl earrings gleaming beneath her dark hair. Her expression? A practiced blend of shock and hurt. Mason stood beside her, arms crossed, face tight. We just want to talk, my mother began, as if I'd been the one to exile them. Without waiting for permission, she started in. She wasn't well, Naomi, you know that. She wasn't herself near the end. Maybe the lawyer misunderstood. Maybe you did. She wrote it, I said quietly, by hand, and she meant every word. Mason stepped forward, voice tight with frustration. So what now? You're keeping everything? The house, the accounts? You think that's fair? Looked at him, the brother who rarely called, who skipped Grandma's last birthday, who only showed up when there was something to gain. She left it to me, I said. She knew what she was doing, and she made sure it was final. You're being selfish, my mother snapped, her mask cracking. That word. After years of overgiving, overperforming, overextending just to earn scraps of acceptance, I was selfish? No, I said calmly, I'm being honest. They stared at me, waiting for the usual, the apology, the compromise, the desperate reach to smooth things over. But I wasn't here to make them comfortable anymore. She saw me, I said simply, when none of you did, and she gave me what no one else ever offered, a place where I was wanted. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Mason looked away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the door. I just let it click shut behind them. And for the first time in my life, the silence that followed felt like peace. It felt like mine, not borrowed, not provisional, just mine. And I was done apologizing for claiming it. 2 weeks later, we met again. Not at my door this time, but across from each other in Mr. Callahan's office, the same room where I had first opened my grandmother's final letter. They'd requested the meeting to clarify misunderstandings, though every person in that room knew exactly what this really was. My mother arrived dressed like she was heading to a charity brunch. Tailored winter coat, flawless makeup, soft pink lipstick, and pearls catching the light. Mason wore a stiff gray blazer that tugged at the seams when he sat down. His jaw clenched so tight it looked carved in stone. I came in wearing jeans and a navy blouse. No makeup, no performance, just me, with a single sheet of paper tucked into my bag, my grandmother's letter in her unmistakable handwriting. Mr. Callahan opened with professional calm. He restated the terms of the will and the addendum, final, binding, non-negotiable. My mother gave a polite smile, folding her hands like she was negotiating a real estate deal. We're not here to fight, she said sweetly. We just hope Naomi might reconsider, out of fairness. Fairness. That word soured in my mouth. Was it fair when I was always asked to take the photo, but never be in it? Was it fair when I ate solo on Christmas Eve? Or when Mason's gifts were carefully wrapped and mine were labeled in smeared black Sharpie? Fairness, I repeated. Now we care about that? Mason spoke up. We're still family. This doesn't have to tear us apart. I met his eyes, calm, steady. Family doesn't erase you because you don't match their image. Family doesn't ask you to be invisible to avoid discomfort. Neither of them answered. I spent over 30 years trying to earn a seat at a table I was never really invited to, I said quietly. But now, I have my own. Mr. Callahan reached for the letter as I slid it toward him. I'm not contesting anything, I told them. But I'm also not forgetting. I stood. No drama, no raised voice. It's truth. And as I walked out of that office, head high, hands steady, I didn't feel like someone who had won. I felt like someone who had finally stopped losing. And in that quiet departure, I didn't find revenge. I found peace. Not the kind of peace you earn. The kind you claim. That spring, I moved into the house on West Hemlock Drive. It was smaller than I remembered from childhood visits, but warmer somehow, as if the house itself had been waiting for me. Hardwood floors still creaked in the same spots. The kitchen carried a soft trace of lavender and cinnamon, the memory of Grandma June's baking etched into the walls. And in the corner of the living room, her old armchair still faced east, where the first light of morning always landed. I left it there, not as a shrine, but as a reminder. The jade bracelet she gave me never left my wrist, not for its value, but for what it meant. Her unwavering belief in me, her quiet loyalty that no one else could erase or question. On some weekends, I planted herbs and swept the porch. On others, I read for hours, or did absolutely nothing. For the first time in my adult life, I rested without guilt. I no longer had to earn my place by being useful. When the holidays came again, I didn't wait for invitations wrapped in expectations. I lit a candle, made a simple meal, set a sprig of rosemary on the windowsill, and whispered, "Thank you." I felt her in the stillness, in the way the sunlight danced on the floorboards, in the soft whistle of the kettle warming on the stove. They say revenge is loud, full of slammed doors and sharp words, but I've learned that the most powerful kind of justice is quiet. It's walking away without the need to explain. It's choosing peace over performance. It's refusing to shrink just to be allowed in. I never called my family again. They never called me. Later, through a distant cousin, I heard that Mason was bitter, that my mother told her church group it was all a legal mix-up, that they were blindsided. Maybe they were, but not by me. They were blindsided by a truth they never wanted to admit, that the daughter they dismissed was the one their own mother trusted with everything. So to anyone who's ever been made to feel like a footnote in your own family story, let me say this. You belong, even if they can't see you. Even if they never say your name. See yourself. And sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. If this story stirred something in you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because your voice, no matter how quiet, carries power.